Hey boys and girls, it's me, and I'm here in the radio lair again. First of all, I want to start this video by congratulating all the Eagles fans out there. And I actually made a fairly accurate prediction at the end of my last video of this game and the score. I had no idea that there would be that much scoring, and ironically, the only punt in the whole game was done by the Eagles. So that was kind of neat. So congratulations. Now, maybe my Jets will, maybe someday before they throw me in a pine coffin, I'll actually get to see the Jets do that again. I saw it once when I was real small, a long time ago. This video is going to be, I actually received a comment, and I received a couple of emails, and a couple of folks wanted to see a little bit more of the now, the last video was about the DX radios and my choices for DX radios. But the inquiries were about basically my AM DX Franken radio, which is basically just a AM Delco car radio, but it actually performs quite well. So I wanted to see the guts of the radio. Now, it's a little bit difficult to take apart, but I'll blow it apart and I'll let you see what's actually on the inside and the kind of things I had to go through to put it together. So let's get to it. Okay, let me just do a quick review of the radio itself. Here's the radio on my bench. And basically this is just a late 80s, early 90s Delco AM only car radio. And I basically built it into a hobby box. I put this whole thing together, I would imagine, if I know it's going to sound a little strange, but I did manage to get all this done for probably under $20, including the box. So I'll go over basically everything toward the end of the video. So basically, here's the radio portion here. The radio is able to be plugged in. I have a cord in the back, which I'll show in a second, and inside there's an industrial 12-volt power supply. And also, it can be run off a battery. I also have a battery back there, which I'll show you. So right now it's not plugged in. I have basically an AC power switch, so if it were plugged in and I turned on this switch, I have a little pilot light here that would light up that would remind me that the radio is plugged in and on that AC power. And then right below that, I have a switch here that I can either operate this off AC
458-2100. The cash you receive,
or switch it over to battery, which I just did. And the radio is playing now. I just turned the volume down. Also, I incorporated, because this was in a car or a truck, had a dial light, so you could actually see the dial at night. And I kind of like that feature, so I actually made a manual sliding switch here that'll light up that dial. You turn off the... And there's a close-up of the dial turned on. So that's the front of the radio. Let me show you the back. Okay, so here's what the back of the radio basically looks like right here. And there's some things that are kind of hard to see in the picture now. This is the back of the hobby box, and I got it like this where it has these little vents on there, which is kind of nice. And I took this core, this is basically, I forgot if this was 3/16 or 1/4 inch stock, and it's just basically steel. And what I did was I bent it into a shape so it would actually hold this nice little 7.2 amp hour battery. And I have little connections that are actually going through the back of the radio to actually connect this up to the radio. Well, actually it goes to the switch, which would run this either on AC or battery, which in turn would go to the radio itself, power up the radio. Then over here I have this just on like a little leather strap. This is the plug that you would plug in the outlet, so if you wanted to run the radio off the AC power supply, you can run that off the power supply as well. And one thing's a little bit tough to see. I'm going to pause this for a second so you can see underneath of the radio, right here, where I got my pointer here, there's actually a little terminal strip there. Let me show you that. Okay, underneath the battery, what you see there is just a piece of just a screw terminal that I actually removed from a Zenith Transoceanic. I just took a Dremel and just kind of quick and dirty sliced that off and attached it to the back of this radio. And you can see here to the right there's a wire going over here, which in turn goes to this Transoceanic wave rod antenna, which I've attached to the side of the radio. It's basically, there's an insulator in between these holders that actually hold the antenna on, where it bolts onto the side of the cabinet. So basically that's the antenna for it right now. But I also wanted to have the option to be able to use, like, say, a tuned loop antenna. So I have like one of those Grundig tuned loops. I could take this off, connect the tuned loop onto these two terminals, and use that as well, so I could have a directional antenna to do my Dx'ing. Now, when I did I actually used this radio for the DX contest with the New Jersey Antique Radio Club this year. Well, I elected to use the wave rod because that's just kind of how the radio, how I designed that radio. Maybe I'll do it again next year and use the tune loop. So that's what's going on in the back of the radio. Okay, I've removed the back panel, and this is basically what's inside. It's kind of an empty hole, but let me get some little close-ups here as to what's going on inside. Okay, a little bit closer. Let me get a little bit better light. There we go. All right, so here's the radio itself. Here's the main power cord. As you can see, this is going out the back of the radio. Where I've got this electrical tape is where it actually meets the hole. I didn't have like a Heiko wire holder I could put in there that was that big. So I just kind of put some tape on there, and it seems to be fine. So basically this is going up, and that is the back of the switch where it could say, okay, AC power on off. That's the big toggle switch. And then the wires kind of come over. And here's the industrial power supply I was talking about. I actually removed this from a piece of equipment that one of my ex-employers was throwing out. He was actually scrapping it. So after work, before I went home and there was still some light out, I had some tools in the back of my car, and I removed a few things, and one of them was this power supply. It's actually adjustable. It's actually a 15-volt power supply, but it's actually got a pot on there, and I was able to regulate it down. I think I'm like 13.3, 13.4, which is plenty power to radio. And I've got, since it's basically the GM radio, used an 8 or 10 ohm speaker anyway. I have this nice Sony speaker that came out of a broken AM FM radio that I have back here. Now the bracketing and everything, you can see I have a bracket here, and that's actually holding up the power supply. I was kind of a little bit too lazy to make another bracket, so I've got some 14 gauge stranded wire, and I soldered it together and put some heat shrink tubing on it to hold it, and that'll keep a thing from even getting close to hitting the side of the cabinet and grounding it out. And then below the switches, I've got a little pilot light there, which is actually a 10-volt light, but I can run 12 volts through it. It doesn't seem to affect it. I just have this connector here, so if I need to move this out of the way, I could just, this is like a little Hubble twist lock connector, and I can take that off just for serviceability reasons. Then I have the switch on the bottom there that I could either run it off of either AC or battery. So that's like a double pull, double throw toggle switch. That's what the connector looks like, disconnected, but I just twisted it off so you could actually see the back. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why didn't you have the connectors to do the initial hookups for it? Well, the realism is I didn't have it. So I tried to find some, and I just gave up on it. I just, what I did was I carefully cleaned the pins, and then I soldered. I actually got a pin out that I found on the web, And this is a common pinout for a lot of 80s and some of the 90s GM radios. So I actually soldered a lot of that stuff on there by hand. And wasn't a lot of connections there anyway, so it wasn't a really big deal. So it's all good. And then I've got wires coming out of here, and then the other side of the back of the cabinet is just the terminal strip. Let me pick this up so you can see, for the connections for the outer antenna there. So you can see this bracket that I made, and I just kind of cut it and bent it into shape. I did paint the back of this thing with a hammer tone paint, just so it kind of matched up. And then here's the connector for the battery coming through there. And then the final thing is I took this, I have two Xena transoceanic parts. I got a handle here, so I could actually pick this up and carry it around. This is from a scrapped transoceanic. And an antenna that I could use. And this is also from a transoceanic, complete with the spring-loaded clip. So that wave rod actually works pretty good, but I could, like I said, I wanted that terminal strip is from a transoceanic, so I could actually use that if I wanted to, you know, do some directional pointing. So that's it, and I did this rather inexpensively. Okay, so that's basically how I put my my Franken radio together. You don't necessarily, you don't have to do this for a whole lot of money. I'm pretty sure I did this for under $20. Maybe at the end of the video I'll kind of piece it all together as to what I paid, because I did buy a few pieces. I vaguely remember what I paid for them. You could find, like, if you go to now March and April around the corner, so we're going to start seeing swap meets and yard sales and everything. You could find another metal box, or you can build one in one like an old wood box, or an old radio carcass that was in a wooden case. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something like this, but it's just something that you could put together and you know, make it work, and just take it from there. It don't have to be pretty, but just something to turn around and play with. So keep tuned in, and we'll be doing some more videos coming up pretty soon. Also coming around the corner, I'm very, very close to having 1,500 subscribers. So I just kind of find that amazing, since we've been doing this since 2010. So now we've been doing this for 8 years and almost 1,500 subscribers. So what I'm thinking of doing is we're going to have another contest. This time I'm going to make it disgustingly easy and real, hopefully real fun. The last contest I had was kind of a disaster. It didn't go as planned. So I'm going to make it a lot of fun, and we'll have a nice giveaway prize as well. So once we get to that plateau, we're going to do that too. So anyway, take care, and thanks again for watching. Bye.
Oldies, WMTR. If you want something to play with,